All right, guys, welcome back to Chef Look Cooks at the Edgartown Library. We're starting our soup series. Today we're going to be making a really nice squash soup. This is a pretty basic one. You guys have probably made it yourself even, or seen it at a lot of restaurants. It's a squash. I'm not going to call it a bisque because we're not putting any cream in there. We're going to have sour cream to be put on top. But I like to make this soup as a vegan soup to start. And then you can add things that make it less vegan as you go, things like butter and cream, or sour cream in this case. I couldn't find turkey at the store. I don't know, not sure what's going on, but I did end up with some chicken breasts. I couldn't even find boneless chicken breasts, so we're actually going to have a sort of bonus here. We're going to find out how to debone these chicken breasts before we poach them. I'm going to save the bones and the skin, and I'll probably make a stock for myself later, because again, we're going to be going for like a vegan soup. If I was doing this at home, I would poach the chicken first, and then I'd use that broth that I poached the chicken in as the base for my soup. But again, I want the soup to be as sort of accessible as possible, and then we add that sort of extras in. So I'm actually just going to save the broth, and we'll use it for something else later. But I've got that going now. I just didn't want to waste too much time on it. Without further ado, I'm going to jump right in and start boning these chickens out for you. So luckily, these are just chicken breasts and not whole half chickens. But you know, we would have broken that apart if we needed to. The breast is usually split right along the sort of backbone, so well, I think these are all the same size, so we're not going to really see what a chicken would look like, but these are essentially put together at the top there, and you've got both of your breasts side by side. What they do is they take this, after taking off the wings and the thighs, which would normally rest right there, they come in here and they just split it right down the center, right through the ribs and the back, and then hopefully, you know, these are really good cuts because they're professionals. Everything's basically in a perfect shape for roasting. Bone-in chicken's really good for roasting. That's usually why I would buy it if any times. Also, if you want to make a stock, it's really good to have those bones as well. But what we're going to do is we're just going to take it off. I find that it's a lot easier usually to remove the breast when it is in sort of one piece, but it's not the end of the world if they're already cut. What we're going to do is we're going to find that inside bone shelf that's sort of attached to the ribs. That's where the back is or was, and we're just going to sort of run our knife along that until we find sort of a way in. Essentially what we're trying to do here is just sort of scrape. If you've ever filleted a chicken, or not a chicken, if you ever filleted, we've got a little bone right here too. Is that part of the wishbone? What's going on? Let's get in behind that. So generally you want to find where the edge of your bone is, and you want to get in behind that so you can sort of scrape off. There we go. Yeah, I think that was part of the wishbone. You want to scrape the chicken right off as close to the bone as you can, much like if you were filleting a fish. And so this is a pretty big knife. I would normally be doing this with a little bit smaller bendable knife, but we just don't have one here. So I'm just using this because it's the sharpest knife we have, and I'm just going right along. I'm kind of using my knife to feel where the hard bone is. There shouldn't be much else in this breast apart from bone, so as long as I'm not putting too much force, I shouldn't cut through anything that I don't want in here. And we're just going to go right to the end. And again, I'm going to make stock out of this, so I'm not too concerned about getting everything. Then once we get to the end, the last thing is the skin that's still attached there, and I'll just peel that off the back side, and we've got a nice boneless chicken breast. And I'll save that for later to make stock. Bones make really good stock. I'm going to boil that hard, and that'll actually break down the calcium in the bones and make a really good broth for ramen. It's tonkatsu is what it's called, and that's when you have the actual like boiled up pulverized bones in your broth. They're sort of in suspension. It's so good for you. So that's our boneless breast. I'm going to go to the rest of these, and then I'll put it right in my hot water here. Normally if you're poaching chicken, you'd want to start with cold water, just because you'll get a clearer stock, but we're not using the stock, so we only care about cooking the chicken. So again, just for time, I'm starting with nice hot. So this one's actually doesn't have that same bone as before. Whoever cut this did a little bit better. So I might even be able to just get in there with my finger. I'm just showing you some different methods of doing this. Chicken really doesn't held together by a lot. There's not much going on in there once you get past the bones. So if you sort of run your line right along where the bone meets the meat, there's usually just connective tissue there that you can sort of pull off. And so if we do this right, and this just depends on what sort of breast you get.
Excuse me, Chris, could you move that serving bowl? I can't see how.
You got it, Skip.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Of course. Sorry, I shouldn't have used your name. I didn't ask you if I could use your name for the internet.
Oh, that's okay.
Great, so I just got all the way through there, no problem. And you know, that just depends on how much you want to put your hands on the food. Using the knife is perfectly acceptable, but sometimes it's a little bit faster if you just get your hands in there. And that's what would be called like the tender. And that is just another part of the breast. There's always this little sort of, what's it called? What is it called? Tendon that runs along the top that you can just cut right out. It goes pretty much the whole way down, but it gets pretty thin by the end, so it's not going to really give you a lot of problems there. Cool, so we'll go back to, let's just see, we'll just check the method on this one. Yeah, this one looks like another one I can just sort of pull off, so I'm just going to kind of go for that and kind of brutalize this chicken, I'm not going to lie, guys. Sometimes you just sort of do it when you're in the kitchen, you need stuff done. And again, I'm not too concerned with what I leave behind here because I am going to be turning this into stock, so I'm not really wasting it so much as I'm just not using it today.
Why are you taking off the skin?
I'm taking off the skin because I'm going to be poaching this, and then later I'm going to be shredding it, and the skin will not break down.
Oh, I see.
Yep, so I just want to make sure anything in here that's tough, I'm going to cut out so that when I'm breaking this down later, it doesn't end up being... this fat here is nice, it's going to make a good stock, so I'm just going to leave it. It will break down once we get to the shredding stage. So, and another bone in this one, weird. Must have been the same guy who did these, and then they got put together. So again, we'll just cut around that bone, and then since I already have the knife in my hand, I may as well finish this off. We're just following the bone along the inside. And I've done this a lot. Not to say that I'm doing this a particularly good job, but if you're looking at me like, wow, I could never do that, it just takes practice. It's okay if you mess it up. I just tore 2 of these apart with my bare hands. So, you know, worst case scenario, you can always get in there and do that. And we're just going to go after this other tendon as well, although this one's not so bad. But yeah, original chicken tenders, that's basically what that was. They were like, well, nobody wants this. It's too tiny, so they just breaded this and fried them. Nowadays, they're usually made of like cut up breast meat in addition to that. But all right, cool. So our chicken's good. I'm going to get that in my water here and just start that poaching. It's going to take about 15 minutes at a simmer. I'm going to try and get this to a nice high boil here first, but about 15 minutes at a simmer until this is cooked through, and should be pretty easy to shred. And we're going to try and shred it while it's hot. It usually shreds a lot better that way. Now I'm just going to wash up. We are jumping into the sort of vegan portion of this meal, so I'm going to make sure everything's nice and clean and sanitized before I move on and get my chicken out of here. Washing up is always the most exciting part of any cooking show. They never show you this on TV, you know? They just put it aside and they're like, I'll clean that later, you know? Around here, we do it live.
Christopher, do you flavor the water before the chicken goes in?
Sorry, what's that?
Do you flavor the water before the chicken goes in?
I did not, nope, and I'm not going to. I'm going to season this chicken after it's cooked, so I'm not putting anything in the water. I generally, when I'm poaching my chicken, unless I'm going to eat that chicken directly out of the poaching liquid without doing anything, I don't season the water. If I'm doing, the other times I usually am poaching chicken, I'll poach like a whole chicken, and I'll do it in a giant pot of water with onions, and I'm usually doing that for like enchiladas. And classically, at least the way I was taught by my Mexican chef, is you don't put salt in the water. You just cook it with the veggies that are in there, and then you shred it off, and then you season the meat with your sauce when you're ready to serve it. In this situation, we're gonna take it off and we're gonna season it in a pan with some butter, but it's gonna get the same sort of idea basically. You want to cook your chicken in the water. You're not trying to season it in the water. Now, again, sometimes you want to poach and season at the same time. That's where you get closer to like a braise or something like that. But a lot of times when I'm poaching chicken, I just want to get it cooked so that I can shred it nice and easy and then use, you know, another method to get that flavor in. Another time that I like to do a lot of poaching is for like a buffalo chicken dip. I would do the exact same thing here. I wouldn't season the water, I wouldn't put anything in there. If I was feeling fancy and I didn't care about sort of wasting, I might put hot sauce in there just to like add that extra flavor, but then at the end, if I'm not using that broth, I always just feel like I wasted it. So a lot of times too, I feel a lot better about throwing away some chickeny water than I would about you know, throwing away something that has a lot of seasoning in it. If I'm using soup, obviously, if I'm making soup where I'm cooking the meat in the broth, I would just put it right in the broth. I wouldn't bother with this whole poaching step or pre-cooking it. I might like sear it off to get some extra flavor in there, but I probably wouldn't bother with this. But in this situation, we're just doing a kind of a unique thing. And again, I wanted to make sure that everything was sort of separate with the vegan and non-vegan, and I really like the idea of sort of seasoning this later to get it sort of taste like stuffing. So that's going to be our goal later. But for now, we're just going to let that go. If it starts to boil, I'm going to turn it down a little bit, but for now I'm just going to crank it. We're all clean over here, no more chicken involved, so we can jump right into our veggies, and we're going to get going. So we always, at least not always, but most of the time I like to start every single soup with garlic and onion. If you don't like garlic, raise your hand. Okay, good. That's what I'm talking about. I'm going to use this whole bulb then. The recipe says 4. I write the recipe for normal people. If, you know, I love garlic. Honestly, with all the stuff we're putting in here, this garlic isn't going to come through too aggressively. You'll be able to brush your teeth when you go home too, just in case. But it's going in first, and one of the reasons it's going in first is it's going to allow us to really get a nice, good caramel on this and change the flavor, make it a little bit more dynamic. We don't want to like brown this too much, and I'll show you that when we start cooking it. We're just going to really get it soft. But the longer it's in there, the more it will cook, and the more that sort of intense garlic flavor will cook down, and it'll end up really just being very, very sweet and a perfect sort of accoutrement to our very sweet veggies that we're putting in here with it. If I was, you know, doing like a stir fry, I might cut back on the garlic a little bit because it's not going to have as much time to really cook down and get nice and sweet. But this garlic's going to have plenty of time. So I'm going to cut this up. We'll look at it again just in case. I'll ask anybody if they want to back out. But otherwise, this whole thing's going in there. And that's in general, if I'm making a soup, I'm making a big soup. I don't really know how to cook for less than about 20 people. So it's good that there's 24 of you here. Sorry for the last 4 of you. I don't know what we're going to do. Maybe this garlic will make up for it. And so I pretty much always am putting an entire bulb of garlic in anything. I measure my garlic in bulbs, not cloves. I'll see a recipe sometimes and it'll be like 12 cloves, and I'm like, that's too much garlic. And I realized they said cloves, not bulbs. And my brain like kind of catches up and goes, okay, fine, we can deal with that. But I absolutely love garlic, if it wasn't very evident from me talking about it. So a lot of different ways to cut garlic. Most of these are crushed because I crushed them beforehand. That makes it a lot easier to peel for one thing, but it also makes it a lot easier to chop up later. And it starts to, it puts the garlic in a very stressed out state. It now thinks it's been stepped on in the ground. So it's going to start changing its sort of chemical nature to try and make itself more digestible, more useful, because it's no longer a seed. It's been broken. It can't be a seed anymore. So it's like, all right, I'm going to feed the rest of the plant instead. Starts breaking down. Because of that, it also makes it easier for us to digest and to absorb. So yeah, garlic is the seed. That's actually how you make garlic. Is you take garlic from the year before and you just replant it right before the frost. So a lot of people are doing that right now, in fact, or I guess right after the frost, technically. Garlic isn't a seed. It's a seed in spirit. It is technically, I believe, a not a tuber, or it's similar to a tuber, a bulb, I guess. It literally is a bulb, but it acts like a seed. The actual little garlic clove is essentially the same as a seed. It has everything that's needed to make an entire new garlic plant, but it isn't technically a seed. Seeds, I think, have to have like a hard shell and be associated with a flower. I'm not sure the technical definition of seed. And I'm not going to chop this too much because we are going to puree this soup later, so I'm just going to give it a nice rough chop, just enough to get it cooked through. Does anybody want to back away? I just want to make sure. Is everybody good? We're still good? Okay, great. Let's keep going. More? All right, cool. That's all I bought. So we're limited at least a little bit, because I would have done it if I would have put it to a vote. So I'm just topping and bottoming my onions here. If I was trying to do anything fancy with these, I would leave the root end on, so I have more play with the onion. Once you start cutting an onion up, it's really just made of a bunch of layers, so it starts to fall apart pretty easily. But if you keep the root end on, that all holds the whole package together. And you can start doing things like brunoise, which is just a fancy word for a very tiny dice. And usually the reason you need it to hold together is because you're cutting the onion multiple different ways. So I cut the top and bottom off, and then I cut it in half. Makes it very easy to peel. This is like every onion I ever worked with in my entire life since I learned how to do this has looked like this. At this point, you can do a lot of things. You can cut it this way along the rings. If I'm doing something like an onion ring, for instance, I might do that. Obviously, these would be half onion rings. I like when there's like the natural curve of the onion for something like where I'm going to see the onion and I want it to look like an onion. I could cut it this way, sort of against the grain. That would still make sort of little like loops, but they're more of like a crescent moon as opposed to like a half moon. And there'll never be more than a crescent moon. Whereas, this way I could cut it in half and get half circles and stuff. So if you want circles, you go this way. Crescents, you go this way. I want a dice, so I'm actually going to just kind of mix those together, and I'm just going to cut along the crescents into a decent size. So now I've got these sort of wedges, and then I just turn the onion and I cut the wedges the other way, and I get big cubes. And again, we're going to blend this soup up, so I'm not too worried about how that looks right now. Just getting my other one heated up so I can get these starting to cook. But if I wanted to do something else like a brunoise or a very small dice, what I do is I cut the onion this way first. And I didn't show you that before. And the reason I do that is it cuts these sort of long strips up first. And then once they're all cut that way, you come in from the top. That cuts the onion the other way. And it still all would be connected to the root at this point. So just kind of be like a floppy mess. And then you hold it together and you cut off of this way. And you basically have pre-diced it. And you're basically just shaving off those pieces of dice. And that's a brunoise. And let's see, we'll be doing shallots at some point. Oh, I forgot to get shallots for this. So you may have read in the newsletter that we'd be using shallots today, and I forgot. But onion, I got a big onion, perfectly acceptable. You can always replace the onion with shallots. I would say about 3 or 4 shallots in here would be perfectly well. It's just going to give you a much more mild flavor. I did intend to do that, but you know, sometimes your brain just kind of autopilots and you go to your standards, which for me is onion. And so we've got onion today, but shallot would be a great addition to this. The main difference between them is just how intense that flavor is. Onion tends to have a little bit more sugar once you cook it down, whereas shallot has a lot more sugar up front. It's a little bit more mild. Onion's got that really sort of intense allium flavor to it. So I'm just going to put a little bit of oil in this pan, and we're going to be cooking our garlic and our onions in there first. See how hot that is. Not super hot yet, that's okay.
Do you have water in that pot already?
This one? No water. I always start, most of the time I'm starting my soups with a saute. Okay. I like to cook my veggies in oil, get a little bit of color, but also start to get, just to get them cooking a little bit faster. And so I'm usually, when I'm cooking a soup, I start with oil, and I'll start with garlic and onions or whatever else I'm putting in there, and sweat that down before I add any liquid into it. And you'll see that throughout the next couple months as we do this. It's pretty rare that I'll add vegetables into broth. I almost always add the broth as my last step, and then set that soup to simmer or cook or finish off whatever it needs to do. Come on, let's go. We need more power. This is finally starting to boil, which is nice. Let's go ahead and get our garlic in there. So this room's about to just smell amazing. If you've ever cooked for your friends or just in general with onions and garlic, there's like this sort of magic thing that happens as soon as you put the onions and garlic in, where people start coming out of the woodwork and say, "Wow, that smells amazing. What are you cooking?" And it's like, well, it's onions and garlic right now, but it's gonna be, X. They're a magical little piece of the world. Some people can't eat alliums, and I feel for them. I don't know what I would do in my life if I didn't have onions. I think maybe 90% of my recipes start with cutting up an onion. It's just a great base for anything. It's kind of a vegetable, so you feel good about eating it. It's mostly just sugar, but that's okay. I mean, a lot of food is mostly just sugar. So in general, it's just a nice place to start, and it just smells so good. I like it raw. I like it pickled. I like them grilled. There's not really a way I don't like an onion, except for not there, basically. Start cooking some onions and garlic. Yeah, it used to be cookies, but I feel like onions and garlic in today's society is where it's at. I'm going to peel everything. If I was cooking at home, I wouldn't probably peel any of this, but I really want this to look nice and smooth when we're done. So I'm even going to peel, my squash and my potato. I love the skin of fruits, or vegetables rather. This is actually a honey nut squash, which you can eat the skin on. You can eat the skin on butternut, it's just a little bit more tough, but the honey nuts are really thin, and they actually are kind of nice. So if you're ever roasting a honey nut, it's basically just a smaller, sweeter butternut. Got a darker skin like this, and they should be labeled if you get them in any of the farmers markets around here, or farms. The skin is a little bit thinner, and it's a really nice sort of texture, so I usually will leave it on. This is a cheese squash, the garlic's starting, all right, which is probably my favorite pumpkin. It's not actually a pumpkin, it's a squash. I mean, pumpkins are squash too, but this is what I would use when I was working at Morning Glory for most of my pumpkins. If I was making pumpkin pie or pumpkin bread, I'd have at least like 50% of these if I could get my hands on them. They're really, really delicious. It's called cheese squash because I guess it looks like a wheel of cheese maybe, but I find that the cheese squash name kind of like gives it, it lends to it the sort of credibility of a very like intensely flavored squash, and I do feel like it has just an amazing flavor. Pumpkin kind of tastes like nothing. This tastes like squash, but has the same texture as pumpkin, so it's a really, really fabulous thing to use. You could use pumpkin in this if you wanted to. You can use just normal butternut, and you don't have to do a mix. I personally really like this mix, though, for lack of a better word, sort of our orange soup, our squash soup. I will always have a sweet potato and some carrots in my squash soup. A lot of times people like to roast their squash for soup. We don't have time to do that today. And even if I was at home, I probably still wouldn't do it. I think the carrots and the potato really help to sort of bring the dish into a place where a roasted squash soup would be. Roasted squash can have a lot more flavor. It's going to be a little bit drier, which can be helpful when you're making soups because you can control the amount of liquid, how thick it is. And the flavor is just a little bit better. But for us, sweet potato and carrot's going to bring that sort of earthy, roasty flavor in and through. And it's also going to help with color. Sometimes squash can be not as yellow as you want. I got a couple questions. Yeah, I'll start here and we'll go back.
Oh yeah. So just, experienced cooks may know this already, but I'm asking because I always make a mistake. When you're sauteing that garlic, first of all, what oil are you using? And I find I must not have the temperature right because mine garlic and stuff it didn't burn. So what level flame, or I don't know if you got the electric.
Sure. So I'm on high right now, but I am using a smaller burner because I want as much heat as I can on the chicken until that's done. I would probably go. I'm a bad curious person to ask because I cook on a high all the time. For those of you who followed my digital career, my home kitchen only has high. It just doesn't do anything else, and so I'm kind of used to just cooking on high. But burning garlic is a dangerous thing, and you can do that at any temperature. When you're cooking garlic, you generally want to start. I like to start with garlic because it's the thing that wants to get cooked the most. It wants to develop the most. Burning it is bad though because it immediately turns bitter. So really, the best advice I can give is when you're cooking your garlic, make sure you have something else to add to it ready. So that as soon as it starts to turn brown, as soon as it gets to the amount of cook that you want it to be cooked, put something else in. That'll lower the temperature. That'll help protect your garlic. The garlic will still keep cooking, but it won't like mine. Mine was just starting to brown, and I don't want any brown at all. So that's why I added the onions in there. But yeah, I would say in general, medium is a good temperature if you have that control, because you can leave it for longer. Because you do like garlic. The best garlic when you're cooking with it has been cooked for like 5 minutes. And it's still not burned. It's just this like golden brown. It's amazing, but you need lower temperatures for that.
Maybe I didn't use enough oil.
And then for oil, I'm just using normal canola oil right now. But I usually would use olive oil at home. That's just what we had some from this spring that I wanted to use up. So yeah. And then another question back there.
My question was similar. I usually start with the onion and then add the garlic.
Sure.
All my recipes seem to start that way. So
No, yeah.
my question.
Nothing wrong with that at all. This is a personal preference. One of my chefs at one of my old jobs, I also used to always start with onion, and then I added garlic like towards the end of my dish most of the time. And one of my chefs was like, "That's like you want to. This peeler is taking off like way too much. This is a crazy peeler." He would always be like, "I like garlic is the most important flavor in that dish." He really liked garlic too. You want to make sure that is like coming through. Do we have another peeler? This thing's crazy. I've never seen a peeler do this before. It's taking off like a centimeter of flesh. Oh well, that's okay. So yeah, so he's the one that taught me to start with garlic and then add the rest of your ingredients. At the end of the day, like it's not gonna really. Wow, am I just using it wrong? Do I not know how to use a peeler? I'm freaking out over here.
Just don't peel it. You don't peel it.
Yeah, okay, cool. I'm not gonna peel the carrots. I have to peel the sweet potato. Maybe it's just the carrots that are being weird. Let's see if it does it to the sweet potato. No, it's better with the sweet potato. Still, this is a very, very deep. It's a very deep peeler. It really, really wants to make sure we're not getting any skin in there. So yeah, so personal preference would be the answer to that question. You can start with anything. A lot of people will like a more garlic-forward dish, and so they might put the garlic in at the end just because of the fact that it won't have time to cook as long. And so, that can be really a benefit as well. But I think it's sort of, at the end of the day, it's just what makes sense to you. For some things, like if I'm cooking mushrooms, for instance, I put the mushrooms in first, and then once my mushrooms I cook them on like super high, and I don't touch them. I just let them go and scream and burn a little bit because mushrooms have so much water in them. They're never going to get like charred. They're always just going to get deep brown. And then right before I start to stir them, I'll throw the garlic on top and start to stir, and that really works well. So sometimes it depends on what I'm cooking. But yeah, most of the time I start with garlic. just because of that one chef. You know, it's all it takes, I guess, is somebody in your life to tell you how to do it. So normally I would be, you know, if we're doing a butternut, I have a method that I used to peel butternut in Morning Glory, and we peeled a lot of butternuts. At one point we even had like a drill press that would spin it, which was really fun. But then we got rid of that, and so we had to learn how to peel them other ways. So I have a couple different ways I like to peel this. For me, if I'm peeling it while it's whole, I like to hold the base like this because it's nice and big. I have big hands, and then I just will hold it like this, and this peeler is going to just betray me again probably. And I will peel down from the bulb towards the top, rotating it as I go. Oh my gosh. I think we have another peeler too, but I'm not going to waste time trying to... It's called cross-contamination. Luckily it was going in there anyways. Oh my gosh. Alright, so you peel down the neck first, and then what you can do is you take the neck here and you just sort of like rotate. Again, it's not going to be great with this peeler, but you sort of rotate the bulb in your hand as you pull the peeler towards you. Got to be careful not to shoot any into the crowd. Come on. So I usually like this method because it doesn't take off that much skin, but this peeler is not really doing it for me, and that's okay. I'll show you the other method. The other method is just using your knife to peel it. Oh my gosh. So if you have a peeler that doesn't take as much off, this is a lot easier because there's like a little bit of a slime right under the skin, and it actually acts as kind of like a lubricant. But because we're getting so deep into the flesh, I'm hitting a lot more fiber, and that's why that looked so hard. It was not ideal. Yeah, we'll save it just in case we need to use it again, but hoping we don't. Okay, just gonna give this chicken a little move, make sure she's going good in there. Yeah, not too shabby. Yeah, so if I was like in this situation, I'm just gonna cook it until it's done. Like I'm probably gonna overcook it a little bit. The nice thing about sort of poaching is you're usually not gonna dry it out. But yeah, internal temperature is the way to go. We have a thermometer somewhere here. I didn't take it out though. I'm just gonna look, and when it's visually white, I'll know that it's done. So the other way that I would peel one of these is I would cut the bulb off like that, and I always do it that way again, so that I can hold on to like the easiest thing to hold on to while I'm dealing with the bulb. I'll cut the bulb off. Some people will cut the bulb off and then cut the sort of root end off, and not just like, it's actually not the root end, that's the end of the flower, right? Because this is attached to where the start of the flower. And then we cut the top off as well. And then you just go along the outside and you just kind of shave off the skin like this. And so this is going to be a much easier method if you're in a rush, but I do tend to waste a lot more squash when I do this. So I will usually avoid it if I can, but if I'm in a rush, I'll do that. And then again, it's the same with the bulb as well. You just have to kind of angle your knife around the outside. This can work for peeling pretty much anything that's round. Turnips, especially it's the season, we're getting some turnips in. This will work for peeling the turnip as well, or beets, or pretty much anything that is sort of round and bulbous like this. This is a really good method for peeling. You don't want to whip out the peeler. This is just on a nice slow softening, which is perfect. Oh yeah. It's starting to get nice and translucent, and you can kind of see through them a little bit. Still a little white in the center, which is perfect. I do want to get something in there soon though. So let's get this squash ready to go. At least some of it. And we'll cut these in half so I can scoop them out. And so, yes. Yeah, definitely. 100%. Especially if you're going to one of the local farms, somebody's getting paid to do that, so you're supporting the local economy. Even if you get it from like a big name store, somebody's still likely getting paid to do that. So I wouldn't, get it like shipped. But we're not getting any squash shipped from anywhere around here. It's all local, so that's really nice. But yeah, 100%. Especially if you just like don't want to, if your hands hurt. There is zero problem with buying pre-cut squash. Just check your dates. Anytime you're buying anything that's been pre-processed, check the date that it was processed, check the sell-by date. With a whole vegetable, you can usually tell what's going on with it, so it's not as big of a problem, but anytime you're dealing with something that somebody else has touched, you just want to check and make sure when that happened. Because yeah, cut squash doesn't last very long, but whole squash lasts forever. So it's kind of, once you start getting oxygen in there, it really sort of starts to fall apart. Okay, lovely. Let me just wash this carrot. So the best part about this is because we're going to blend the soup up, we can cut these pretty chunky. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to cut big planks out of this potato. And I didn't forget about the squash, don't worry. I do have a tendency to forget about some ingredient though. I'll check the list in a second. And then so I cut planks and then I'm cutting sticks. And this is something you'll see me do pretty much anytime I'm cutting. I always do planks and then sticks. The size of the plank changes depending on how big I want the actual cube to be. But planks, sticks, and then from those sticks you cut your cubes. Sweet. And then these I'm just going to quarter because there's not much to them. They're going to cook pretty fast. Can't recommend enough trying some butternut if you haven't, or not butternut, some honey nuts if you haven't before. They came into my life maybe 6 years ago or so, and I just am so in love with them. They're really great roasting squash. Anything that I don't have to cut the skin off of just makes me happy. Delicata is another squash that's like that, where you don't have to take the skin off. You can just eat it as is. Big fan of that. These are a little bit goofy on the inside. Maybe they were picked a little early or something. The stems don't appear to be too well developed. But for a soup, that's going to be just fine. It would be a little sad for a roast, but not going to be a problem for us. All right, let's go ahead and get this in the pan. Started cooking. Those onions and garlic are plenty cooked now. Have a nice flavor, good sugars. You can put brown sugar in this dish if you want to. If you're cooking it out of season, anytime basically before October, I would say, would probably be out of season squash. I would probably put some brown sugar in here because your squash probably isn't going to be as sweet. You could also add extra sweet potato if you wanted to. And I would add that brown sugar right before I put the squash in probably. I'd let it melt down a little bit and almost caramelize with the onions and garlic. But we're going to skip that for today. I just got these locally. They seem like they were really well cured. And they're honey nuts rather too, which are just naturally a lot sweeter. And I'm adding that sweet potato and some carrots, so I'm not too worried about our sugar content on this one. And I'm using a cheese squash, which is like probably the best squash for anything in existence. Only matched maybe by a Hubbard. If you guys have ever seen a Hubbard squash, they're about this big, and they are amazing. It's probably the best squash, but I couldn't find a Hubbard small enough, or I would have brought one in today. Yeah, they're absolutely massive, and they weren't selling any partial Hubbards at the store yet. They will probably as we get closer to Thanksgiving. But again, if I could, all my pumpkin pies are basically cheese squash and Hubbard. Like, pumpkin's cool and all, they look cool, but yeah, they're not the best squash in the world. All right, so let's go ahead and get this guy seated so I can get it in. Oh, it looks so good. Just like the color, I mean, I don't know. This is one of my favorite squashes in the entire world. And just so you know, the guts in here are edible. Like if you were really hungry, you could throw that in the soup. I wouldn't want the seeds in there. That's usually why we're taking it out, is because of the seeds. But these are just like essentially the umbilical cord for the seeds. Plenty of really good nutrients in there. They're a little fibrous, but we're blending the soup up, so it's not going to be a problem. If I was roasting it, I wouldn't want that because the texture's weird, but like if I was using the squash in a pasta or something, I might toss it in. Like, it's not going to hurt anything. The biggest problem you end up with the guts like this is that there's seeds in them. And the seeds have a shell that you don't want to eat until it's roasted. So most of the time when I'm removing the seeds, I just happen to also remove the guts. But I'm usually not like a big stiffler if there's like a little guts hanging around. I leave them in there because they're not doing anything to hurt you, and they're gonna get blended up, especially in this case. All right, so let's go ahead and get the rest of these seeds out here. And that's just in general sort of one of my tendencies. I tend to eat a lot of skin. I tend to, eat a lot of the sort of the roots, like broccoli stem as well. Fabulous thing that usually gets thrown away. Is actually like one of the best parts, in my opinion. Really good grilled too. You can grill the broccoli as well, but it tends to get really charred. But the stem will hold up incredibly well. All right, so let's see. How are we going to peel this? I'm going to cut off the top and bottom. It's going to be my first step. And then I'm probably just going to go through here and shave off the outside now that I have a nice handle. And I could have done this when it was whole, but now that it's halved like this, I kind of have like a decent handle. And this is not the best way to do this, I would say, but the way that peeler's been treating me, I'm gonna just avoid it. Any squash that has ridges like this, you're pretty much guaranteed that you're gonna waste a good amount. This would have been a really good squash if I was roasting this, for instance. This would have been a good squash to roast. I would have cut it up in half like this, put it on a sheet pan, roasted it, and then I could just peel the meat out. I wouldn't have to deal with all this process. But that's just not what we're doing today. We're doing it differently. Oh, this is not so bad. Maybe I'll do this. Can you tell that I don't usually peel this one with a knife? I'm just experimenting. You know, sometimes that's what you got to do. That's not too bad.
We're all learning together.
Yeah, exactly. That's the best way. All right, sweet. So I did actually learn a little bit of something there. I kind of like going like this on this one. So we're going to try that here, see if that works better. It feels a little safer too for whatever reason. Cut this bottom off. Something about holding it like a bowling ball didn't feel right. Okay, not too shabby. Oh, did I not cut it? I didn't cut enough of this off. Get out of here. Okay, I'm gonna just finish that peel. You know, some cooking shows, they do all this beforehand. You miss out on all the fun part. But we don't do that. We like to make sure everybody gets a chance to see every part of the process.
Yeah.
All right, sweet. That's our peeled squash. We're just gonna whack this guy up into some cubes, toss him in with the rest of our soup. Let's check on this chicken. Chicken's looking pretty close here, guys. I should have put a timer on. What time are we at? Yeah, this has got to be getting close. I'm gonna grab another cutting board just so I can cut that open. We'll get back to that in a second. So with these, I'm just gonna cut them into strips again. And then from strips, we'll go to cubes. So really important anytime you're using a knife, use your fingers as a guide. I'm sure you guys are kind of seeing that. My thumb is usually holding on to things, but I try to never put my thumb past my forefinger. My forefinger is my guide. Everything behind my forefinger should be safe. So if I keep the tips of my fingers behind my forefinger, I keep my thumb behind my forefinger, I should be able to do whatever I want to and not cut myself. In practice, you know, cutting things is dangerous, but generally that's going to save you from a lot of harm in the kitchen. If you use your fingers as a guide, you sort of curl them under. A lot of chefs will talk about like you gotta have like this super curl and keep your thumb back and chop, chop, chop really fast. Even though I know how to do that, I don't generally, because I don't want to cut myself. If I don't have to go fast in the kitchen, I don't. I like to take my time. I like to you know, sort of do things as they come naturally. But in generally, you keep the tip of your thumb behind the tip of your forefinger. You'll save your thumb. You might lose your forefinger, but that's okay. Let's get this rocking. This is going to be a good amount of soup, guys. I hope you guys are hungry. I really wanted to make sure that we got that winter vibe going. Everybody's sort of bulking up, getting ready for a nice winter, and so I want to make sure you're well fed as well. Yeah, I'm thinking about this now, and I think this might be the first time I've used a cheese squash without roasting it in a soup. Yeah, it's great. I love it. It's I'm just sitting here as I cut this up. I'm like, man, I don't feel like I've ever done this before. I do usually roast them. I'm realizing because I usually am using them for pumpkin pie or pumpkin applications. All right, this is looking good. So as you can see, it's mostly squash, a little bit of carrot, and some sweet potato, and some onions in there. And I'm just gonna let that get sort of warmed through, and then I'm gonna hit it with our broth and start letting this just cook down into a nice soup. In the meantime, I'm just gonna get this cleaned off. I guess I actually can just use this cutting board because we're not coming back with any more veggies. So I'll use this one instead of the one I grabbed. Let's take a look at our chicken and see. We'll get the biggest breast. And we'll just see what it looks like inside. It might be done, it might not be. That looks pretty done to me. We'll just see how it pulls apart. Not too bad. Perfect. I think that's going to be good, guys. I'm just going to give that just a little bit more time. Just so it's nice and hot while we're dealing with it. I don't want it to cool at all. I want it to be really, really hot when I'm trying to break it up. Because the hotter it is, the more the connective tissues are liquefied. All those tendons and fat, when they get hot, they get closer to liquid. And so, you know, they're going to pull apart easier. Once that starts to cool, the collagen and all of those chemicals that are in those tendons starts to solidify again, and the breast becomes very easy to slice if I wanted to do like a deli meat or something like that. But to pull apart becomes a lot harder as those connections start to form again. So we want to break this up as hot as possible. Why did I have let's use this one. Let's use a big one. We're going to try a fun method today. I've never done this, but I was reading online about breaking up chicken, and somebody said you could use a hand mixer. So we're going to see how it works. I have no idea. We might end up going back to 2 forks, but we're going to give it a try. So let's get that all set up, and we'll experiment together, guys.
Did we worry about being spattered by it?
Nah, I'm going to do it well away from you guys. Don't worry. Lisa bought me these really fabulous tea towels for using. We did a really fun Halloween where I was a chef as well, because I just tend to always play a chef. And so they're really great though, because wiping up your kitchen space with a paper towel just for me feels wrong a little bit. Okay, cool. Let's go. I'm gonna get these switched up so that I can have my soup on the hottest burner. Make sure you're still going. Awesome. Okay, and this is pretty much not warmed through. It's not like cooking yet, but everything's got a little bit of warmth on the outside, which is what we want. So let's get our broth in there. I'm just using like a basic, this is organic, which is nice. It was on sale. Basic veggie stock, which is gonna have all sorts of different veggies. I just chose the one that said vegan. Weirdly enough, some vegetable broths are not vegan. I'm assuming it's something to do with the stabilizer they put in there maybe. But I wanted to make sure this was vegan just in case. So that is why I chose this.
Well, I have a question about
Yeah.
that. Do you prefer low sodium, or you're not concerned?
I personally do prefer low sodium. Most veggie broths are going to be pretty low sodium anyways. But yeah, I really do. I'm meant to be on a low salt diet, so I'll usually buy a low sodium if I can. I can put salt in if I need salt. I don't need them to salt my food for me. In general, that's why I kind of shy away from a lot of processed foods anyways, is I want to be able to control what I'm putting in my body and my food. Sometimes it's okay to get rid of control, you know, and let people do things for you. One item, for instance, like light soy sauce, light coconut oil or coconut water, not coconut water, coconut milk. Like, don't buy those. That's literally just normal coconut oil or normal soy sauce with water added. You can do that at home. If you want low sodium soy sauce, buy soy sauce and add water at home. If you want, or just add less soy sauce to your dish. If you want low fat coconut milk, just use less coconut milk. That's literally all they're doing. It's the exact same thing. So there are certain situations where low is not what I would choose, but low sodium is one where salt. We're not at a point where salt is in scarcity, so get low sodium and add more if you find you want it. I've been eating very low salt, and what I've found is that vegetables taste more like themselves and less like salt when I eat with low salt. I'm like forced to find that flavor, and it helps that I'm a chef. But even if you're not, at first you'll be like, oh, this doesn't taste good, and then you'll realize, oh no, it tastes like the things I put in it and not like salt. Salt is very good at binding and bringing things together and making one flavor that is delicious. But you sometimes tend to lose the things that are a part of it. When you don't have that salt binding them together, they have a lot more to say for themselves. So let's go ahead and take this chicken out and get it. Oh yeah, see, it's already falling apart. That's perfect. I think we're gonna be in a good place with this chicken. Really, really hope that this mixer works. I'm just like so excited to see if it works. So this would be a nice broth right now. You can already see there's a little bit, well maybe you guys can't, but I can see there's a nice little oil slick up top, which is great. That's just some of the fat that was left over on this breast cooking out. This would be a great broth. Like if I took this and put those bones and skin in from earlier and just let it cook down. If I was thinking more, I probably should have saved the pieces of the carrot and onions as well to put in there. we're good. We have our second soup basically good to go. Or again, if you're not worried about vegan, just use that same broth in with your squash and stuff, and that'll be perfect. So I am still going to save this. I might make a little chicken broth or a chicken ramen for the staff at some point. Another really fun thing to do is if you guys like mac and cheese at all, cook your pasta in this chicken broth or any sort of leftover broth you have that you might not be using for anything else. So 2-fork method, I'm just going to show you real quick. You just get in there like this and you just sort of start pulling them apart. We might have to use that. I really hope we don't though. Let's see. So unfortunately this cord's really, really short, so I'm just going to kind of do this back here. Maybe I'll do it up here. Fingers crossed, guys. Oh my god, it's working! Okay, it's way too low. Wait, I gotta see. I never used this before. Okay, that's too high. So let's put it on low. Yeah, I have it on low. It's working so good. This is crazy. Okay, I gotta. I'm really excited about this. This is amazing. I need to get one of these. Sorry if you're getting hit by anything. Maybe I do need a splash guard. I have it on like the lowest setting too. Okay, you can kind of see, like, right? I mean, I'm not very good at this right now, but because this is the first for me. But this is kind of amazing. I'm like in love with this method right now. Yeah. So what I'm seeing is happening. I don't know if you guys can see it, but the chicken is getting like passed through here, almost like a pasta maker or something like that. And that's what's doing the shredding. This is not what I expected was going to happen, but this is really, really cool. I'm super excited about this. This is changing everything. There will now be like a pre and post hand mixer for me for all chicken applications. All right, let's try that off. I think that's good enough. We'll get in with there with a fork and just where's the release button? I guess there isn't one. That was fun. I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. So we'll just get in there with these forks just to make sure everything's broken up. Again, you know, if I wasn't doing that in front of me, I had it nice and close to me, I probably would have had a little bit better control. But that was a great success. That's like more shredded than I even anticipated, and that's more shredded than I would ever get with hands as well, which is going to be really good. The more shreds we have on here, that means more surface area, that means more seasoning, that means this turkey, well, it is chicken, I guess, is going to taste really, really good when we put it on top of that soup. So that was a win. Wow, that's so cool. I'm in love with that. Get that broken up. All right, cool. So next step, we're gonna get this chicken seasoned. Oh gosh, guys, I always forget something. We want to season the soup. So we're gonna use Bell's seasoning. Most of you guys probably have seen this before. For me, it was new. I just learned about it like 2 years ago. But this is kind of like an older seasoning. It's been around for over 150 years. It's literally got everything you could possibly need in there. Let me just read off the ingredients: rosemary, oregano, sage, ginger, marjoram, thyme, and pepper. It's perfect. It's really good. What I've been doing recently is I've been mixing with mayonnaise and rubbing it on the outside of my chicken or my turkey when I roast it. I really like it in my stuffing, which is what I'm using it for right now. That smell, that flavor reminds me of stuffing, like Stouffer's, you know, like classic homemade stuffing. And so what I'm hoping is going to happen is we're going to put this on the turkey in a second here with a little bit of butter, and that turkey is going to start tasting like it is stuffing. And then that turkey's going to go on top of the soup, so it's going to feel like we're kind of like Thanksgiving dinnering a little bit. But I also want a little bit in the actual soup, just because it's a really good amount of, these are things that I want in my soup. Rosemary, oregano, sage, ginger, marjoram, thyme, and pepper are perfect. Thyme's at the end there, so I'm going to add some extra thyme. Where's my thyme? Just because I think thyme is like one of the absolute best herbs in all of existence. There's a lot of jokes between chefs, you know, like if you don't have thyme, add thyme. Thyme is a really good flavor. It tends to make things taste like they've been cooking for a really long time, even if they haven't. So thyme is just like a good thing to add. If you want something to taste good, your brain kind of will probably be like, wow, that tastes so good. What is that? It might be thyme. What's up? Sorry.
No, I'm just...
Oh yeah. So I'm not measuring this. This is probably going to be like about a teaspoon. I'm just kind of shaking a little bit on the top. And then I am going to measure the bells because this stuff is powerful. It's powdered. It's not herbs. It's not whole herbs. Oh, here we are. So it really will go quite a long way. I think I'm just going to put a teaspoon in there. That's what I said. Yeah, a teaspoon. Oh no, I did say a tablespoon. Let's go. Let's start with a teaspoon and see what it looks like. I kind of forget sometimes how powerful Bell's is. So Yeah, when you grind herbs up and make them into a powder like that, they become a lot more potent. Now, granted, they're dried, so that's going to make them a little less potent as well.
Now, what if you used fresh thyme? Like, how would you?
If I was using fresh thyme, I would have put the thyme in with the garlic and onions.
When you were sauteing.
Yep, yeah. Fresh thyme I like to cook in my oil. It'll start to pop, and I'll just put the whole sprig in there as well. You can take it out later. But with dry thyme, it'll burn, so I won't do that. Yeah, exactly. So thyme, I'm gonna put a little chives in there too. Oh my gosh. Just for a little extra onion flavor. This is all gonna get blended up later. And then a little Italian seasoning, just a little bit. Italian seasoning is basically the same stuff as in Bell's. We got marjoram, thyme, rosemary, savory, sage, oregano, and basil. Just adding a little bit more herbs in there. I really, really like herbs with my squash in general if I'm roasting or basically doing anything with that. And that's probably just like a half a teaspoon, just a little bit to get a hint of some of those other herbs that weren't in the Bell's.
When you roasted, like if you were roasting your squash for
Yeah.
the soup, and you were using the dried herbs, would you put them on the roasting squash?
You could definitely, yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think there's pretty much no point in cooking where I will tell you not to add flavor if you want to. You know, I was talking about it earlier, whereas I'm using plain water for my poaching because I don't want to waste this water when when it goes away. But you could very much have put a lot of seasoning in there. You could put all these herbs in your poaching liquid as well to really just like layer that up. But I just tend not to in certain situations. But yeah, adding flavor at every single point of the process is a great idea. Layering flavor is what we call it. And it just, I'm just going to take a taste of this, see how that Bell's is coming through. It's just going to be like water at this point, but that's good though. Wow, you never think water would taste so good. I'm going to put some more Bell's in there. So 3 teaspoons is a tablespoon. 4 tablespoons is a quarter cup. Just that's like the way I remember it. So let's go up to that tablespoon. Let's just get it in there. I think it's like our main flavor in here. We're not going to put tons of salt in this because it is kind of a sweet soup. And there'll be plenty of salt in with the turkey. So we want to have, one of the things that I've done when I've been cooking low salt myself is I'll season a lot heavier. I'll put a lot more herbs, I'll put a lot more cumin, I'll put a lot more whatever it is that I'm using. And that helps as well, because one of the things salt does do is it really does like wake up your taste buds. So adding a little bit more of everything you're putting in there tends to make it a lot easier for it to come through. So this looks great. This is going to be great. I just need to make sure it gets up to temperature. I might actually get the lid for this to really make sure we go. I don't want to be waiting on this soup. There you go. Alright, so we'll get a lid on this just to really get it to a boil as fast as possible. This is a really good induction burner that just works amazing, but this pot, for whatever reason, always hates to boil water. It's got a nice like induction base bottom, but I think it was more designed for using on an actual stove. But cool, let's go ahead and get ourselves ready to season up our turkey. This is cool enough to get off.
So Chris, you did not put the salt in yet in the soup.
I haven't, yes, correct. I'm going to try it after we blend it, and I'm going to do my last seasonings then. I'm going to put some pepper in there. Thank you for asking. I'm going to put some pepper in now, though. But yeah, the salt I'm going to put in after I get a taste of like the final product, because I just want to make sure. Because I did use like this has a decent amount of salt in it, so I don't want to add any more. Well, that's probably why it tastes so good, because there's already salt in it. I don't want to add any more unless I have to, basically.
Sometimes I find if I put a lot of pepper in it, it gets a bitter taste. I don't like it.
It can, yeah. Black pepper definitely can be bitter. That's one of the things I actually kind of like about it. But yeah, there's not much you can do about that. Just put less in. But I'm kind of like a pepper fiend. So I've got a little garlic powder, pepper. We're gonna need some salt and Bell's for when we do the turkey. Or I guess it's chicken. And this will be for later. I got a feeling this is gonna blend up pretty thick, so we'll add some more broth in after to thin it out. The texture we're going to be going for, and we'll talk about it a little bit later too, is we want it to be thick so that it like sort of coats your spoon, and so that we can put the turkey on top and it'll float. But we don't want it to be so thick that we have to chew it, right? We don't want to chew our soup. I mean, nothing wrong with chewing soup, don't get me wrong. But generally with a bisque or a thin soup like that, you don't want to be chewing if you don't have to. So here. Lovely. So I'm going to get this heated up over here, and we're just going to start melting some butter. That's what I needed the cutting board for. let's see, what do I got? I think I said 2 tablespoons. We'll start with 2 and we'll see if we need more. Okay, so we've got some different pieces there. We'll just start melting 2 tablespoons of butter. This chicken can turn out pretty fluffy, so I might end up with more than that. We'll just sort of see what it looks like. That's right, I can't do that with this. I'm so used to picking it up because I have such a hot stove. I'm so used to like picking it up to try and like take it off the heat. But I gotta remember, I gotta leave it on because it's an induction burner. Won't need any more than that. Sweet. So what we're gonna do with the turkey, it's pretty good right now. I'm just gonna make sure. Yep, it's pretty good right now. But we haven't done anything to this turkey, or I guess it's chicken. We'll just call it chicken. Oh shoot. I should probably ask, is anybody vegan or vegetarian that's here? Okay, great. I'm not going to bore you about that. I wanted to make sure that it was available for everybody, but if nobody's here, I just put the soup spoon in the turkey. Don't want to do that. Since we're not worried about that today, I'm not going to worry about it. So we want to make this taste like stuffing. That's my plan. If I was like really, really intent on it, I might even like put some like some onion and celery like puree in here as well. But I think it's going to be a little too much. Not too much, but I think we're not going to need it. I think the bells is going to kind of do the job for me. I don't usually cook with brand name stuff, but there's just nobody else in the world that kind of makes this. So this is the only one of the few times you'll see me say a brand name over and over again while we're cooking. And it's so new to me too. It's weird. I guess I don't know what we use. I guess we just use like basic, Stouffer's stuffing when I was younger. My mom's in the crowd; she might know. So it was always in there, and so I never actually like worried about what I was seasoning things with. But as I've gotten older and as I started to be like, okay, well, I want to do this myself. I want to make my own stuffing from fresh bread. Like this started showing up. My partner, her family actually brought this into my life, I guess. Anyways, it's good. It's really good. And it's not good just for Thanksgiving. Obviously, it always shows up around Thanksgiving. It's even got a turkey on the front.
What's the difference between the bell seasoning and bay seasoning?
Old Bay?
No, Old Bay.
Oh yeah, so Old Bay is salty. First off, there's no salt in Bell's, which is another thing I really love about it. Old Bay is more red sauce. It's got black pepper and I think paprika. It's almost kind of what else is in there? There's a very particular herb that it's meant for seafood though, and it's salty is the main thing. Whereas this would be meant for poultry usually, as a flavor profile. You can put this on seafood. You can put Old Bay on poultry. Nobody's going to stop you for sure. But that's kind of the general intended result. So cool. This butter is nice and melted. I'm going to go ahead and put our chicken in there and just start sort of coating it with the butter. What I'm looking for now is just to see if I have enough butter. What I'm going to try and do here is sort of slow cook this chicken. I'm going to try and get a little bit of color on it and also just get it nice and seasoned so that it'll taste really, really good. But it's not going to season well, it's not going to color well if it doesn't have a little bit of fat. It's just going to stick, and we don't want that at all. So I'm going to mix it up here and just make sure I've got enough butter in there. And I'll be able to tell because the chicken will get a little bit of like a buttery sheen on it. I can already tell I think I might need more. Yeah, I'm gonna need more, and that's cool. This is a little more chicken than the recipe calls for. I just kind of bought that massive thing of whole breast chicken, and I didn't weigh it after I cut the bone out, and that was about 6 pounds with the bone in. So there's a chance that we just have way more chicken than I anticipated here. So adding more butter is not going to hurt anything. I'm pretty sure you guys won't mind having a little more butter in there. At the end of the day, it's not going to be too much butter. So.
But you could have used olive oil, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I like butter in this situation because it's giving me what I'm trying to sort of evoke with this chicken is the flavor of stuffing, and so for me, like nice buttery celery and herbs is like for me what sort of tastes like stuffing. Butter tastes like stuffing to me, and so that's kind of why I decided to do butter with this. And a little bit of connective tissue in there, maybe. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I don't, just because I never have it. I don't usually use butter in my cooking either, honestly. Butter is like a Thanksgiving specialty. It goes on everything, I feel like. But even in like normal cooking, I'll like put it on toast. But I usually am an oil guy, an olive oil guy, for pretty much everything. Oh, margarine is?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically stabilized oil, right? So like it's gonna be a little goofy.
You mean
Yeah, exactly. Hydrogenated and there's all sorts of other stuff. So let's go ahead and let's throw some seasoning over the top of this. What did I do? I think it was a cup, 2 tablespoons, right? Yeah. It should be the rest of this, or at least a good amount of it. Oh yeah. I might even go back and put more butter in there, as long as nobody minds. Does anybody mind? Cool. When I write these recipes, sometimes I have a chance to sort of test them beforehand. Sometimes, I've only done them one time in my head. And this particular dish, the turkey, and like with the seasoning and stuff, is something I've never done before. I just wanted it to work, and so when I wrote down the butter, I was like, that'll be enough butter, and I don't think I was right. I think I would probably double that butter, and potentially even go as far as to say a whole stick might be worthwhile if you're cooking this at home, because that's what I'm going to put in right now. So let's go. Yeah, I think that's really what happened. Is I ended up with a lot more chicken than I anticipated. I wonder if I should like weigh this at some point and see where we're at. But yeah, just more chicken, more butter, a little more seasoning. In fact, I probably will end up using the rest of this seasoning as well for the same reason.
You're like cooking for 24.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, me and my cat.
Yeah, exactly. One breast of chicken would be perfect for that, And then for that, maybe like just a pat of butter and you're good to go. Do you mind if can I ask about your cat? Is that allowed? Do you want to share any information about your cat? I love cats.
No, I actually don't have a cat.
Oh no! I'm so sorry I called you out on that.
I have a boyfriend. He eats a hell of a lot.
I am really getting.
Yay! That's what I'm talking about. Just give this a try. Oh, it's so good. Oh my god, yeah. Okay, this is gonna be good, guys. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what I'd do if I liked food. All right, we're gonna put some black pepper in here as well. All right, good. I'm getting some bubbles over in my soup, which is good. It means we should be at most about 10 minutes away from that being done. This is one of my longer cooks, guys. I gotta say, I knew soup was gonna be a little longer. Soup always takes a bit of time to really get done right.
How many containers of the broth did you put in the soup?
2 for now.
And
Yep.
then you'll add it when you...
And I'll add more, yeah, exactly. The recipe calls for up to 4 quarts.
Okay.
4 quarts, is that what I said? Yeah. 2 quarts. So these are pints. So I would need 1 more to get to 2 quarts, and I'll probably use most of this, honestly, just based off of what I saw in there.
Yeah. Like when you blend it.
Yeah, but I just, I always I tend to over, also I feel like maybe what it really is that when I've cooked this in the past, we've been going for a thinner soup because, it's been commercial and you're like trying to stretch it and make money. But when I cook at home, I never do that. I'm always like the thickest soup possible. Okay, I'm gonna toss a little bit of garlic in with the chicken as well, just some garlic powder, just because I really like it. This is looking good. Kind of hoping this will get a little bit more color, but I think it's just this burner is not as powerful. It's a very tiny, this is like the small burner. I might put the chicken on this one once the soup is done, just to give it a little bit more time. Man, that smells good.
So, if you were layering let's say you started with fresh herbs, right? So
Yeah.
would you be layering more fresh herbs now or not yet?
Into the soup?
Well, whenever.
Well, yeah, so like with the soup, if I was trying to do like a little bit more layered, I probably would have put fresh herbs in with the garlic and oil. And then right before I put the broth in, I might have put like a bay leaf and like any other like more dried sort of intense herbs that really like to simmer. But yeah, because like the bells is so powdered, and that was what I was kind of like focusing most of the seasoning on here. I didn't really bother with that just because, oh, there we go. Now we're talking. Okay. So yeah, I didn't really worry as much about that because the bells is going to just instantly infuse itself because it's so powdered and so easy to sort of mix in.
Because I always thought you had to layer with, and I guess I'm incorrect, to layer with salt to make the flavor pop as you went along.
Yeah, I would say that it's not. You're not wrong. There's no like layering with salt is definitely a good idea. With layering with salt, make sure that you season everything. When you add something new and there's salt already in the dish, that salt is going to transfer to the new thing. But if you put salt in after, you're making sure that that new thing is salted. And again, with this one particularly, because the broth is salted and because we're working on a more sweet dish, I just have my intuition is telling me that there's going to be enough salt in there. So even if I wanted to salt things as I was adding them, I think it would sort of betray us in the end. So the most important.
To use less. I
Yeah.
just think that's what I was under the
No, yeah,
impression
you're very right.
that you were supposed. That was a technique.
It is. It's a good technique. In this situation, I'm not doing it basically because I feel like there's going to be enough salt in there. And the most important step with the layering salt is putting salt in at the end. Because that's when everything's in the dish. The whole point of seasoning is to make sure everything's seasoned. If everything's in there at that point, you're going to definitely be seasoning everything. And with a blended soup like this, we're not going to have chunks and like little crannies where seasoning is going to get lost. So it's going to be very easy to season the entire thing at once. If I was doing like a chili or something that was like really, really thick and hearty, where I knew there wasn't going to be a lot of space or I was going to have a hard time stirring it, I would be very much sure to layer my seasoning, because I'm not sure at the end if I'm going to be able to season the stuff that's at the bottom of the pot or the stuff that's like inside of something. Like if I was making stuffed peppers, I would season the inside of that pepper for sure before I put any stuffing in there, because there's no way to get to it. And that's usually like where layering makes more sense. But again, with like a soup like this, everything's going to be one at the end. So when I season it, it's seasoning everything. So yeah, you're not. There's no like wrong or right. It's almost always it's situational, and a lot of times it ends up being personal preference too. But with layering situational is really what we're looking at right now. Okay, let's take a little taste of this. See how we're doing. That's pretty good. Okay, I'm gonna leave it there. I don't want it to be too intense. I think that's got a pretty decent stuffing vibe to it though. Put that on a bread, and that's like, it's giving me like sort of gobbler feelings right now. So we'll turn that off for now. Let's return to our soup and see how we're doing. Oh yeah. Okay, so we're just wanting everything to be nice and soft here so that we can blend it up. So the hardest ingredients in here are going to be the carrots. So that's what I'm going to test first. If the carrots are soft, we should be good. But I'll probably test a little bit of everything. So let's see, there's a carrot right there. Just grab him and try and swish him against the side. Nope, not yet. We're gonna have to wait a little bit longer, guys. Okay, let's just let that go. Put the lid on there so we can really get that temp going, almost like a pressure cooker. Do a little cleanup. And we'll just let this sit. There we go. Get a little bit of color on the bottom. So guys, while we wait for that and I do a little cleanup, does anybody have any particular questions? It doesn't have to be about this dish. It can be about literally anything cooking relating you've been worrying about or thinking about, anything you wanted to cook. I can whip a recipe out for you right now.
Have you cooked Jack Little pumpkins?
No, I've never cooked them. They are actually technically a gourd. Jack B. Littles are not a pumpkin. They're a gourd. So I would imagine they're not very tasty.
Wrong.
Yeah, you.
Now I'm going to teach you.
Yeah.
My nephew. You just cut the top off like you would a big pumpkin. Scoop out the seeds. Put a pat of butter, a little salt and pepper, and I even put a little brown sugar or syrup.
Yeah.
And then the key is cooking them low and slow in the oven. I mean, they take at least a half an hour, you know, with a little. That's how I got Jade and Jude.
Okay.
To eat them. Every kid I've ever given them loves them.
Oh, I love that. Okay, great. I'm a big fan of that.
And I recommend 2 per person at least.
Yeah, exactly, because they're tiny little guys.
And they're so good.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, and that's the perfect way to cook them because I'd never want to peel one of those things. They're they're so pitted and like impossible.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Thanks for telling me.
You're welcome.
Yes, Skip.
Yeah, why is it that when you flavor something with a bay leaf, why is it always you have to take it out, not grind it up and put it in your dish?
Yeah, sure. That's a great idea. There is ground bay leaf that people will use for seasoning, and there's nothing wrong with that. Bay leaf is a kind of mild thickening agent too when you grind it up. It's almost like my brain is thinking about gumbo filet, which is a leaf you grind up in gumbo. But bay leaf as well will do a very similar, almost thickening when you put it in soup. But you can use ground bay leaf, and you can eat whole bay leaf. One of the reasons we take it out is because it's sharp. Even when it gets cooked for like an hour, it's still pretty sharp. It doesn't get very soft.
Also, it overpowers the dish.
Well, it's more like if you get it in your mouth, it's going to be a very awkward texture. But like if you chop up bay leaf, or if you're using fresh bay leaf, or if you get powdered bay leaf, yeah, like the flavor itself is not bad. Like I'll eat a bay leaf, but you want to make sure people know. And usually when people will tell you to take a bay leaf out, it's being served to someone else. It's not being served to family or something like that. If you're having a family dish, don't take the bay leaf out. It's actually a tradition. If you get the bay leaf, you're the one that has to cook next soup, you know? Like, you get the bay leaf, like, that's like the big thing. I think it's in, I'm trying to remember what tradition that's from, but somebody told me that once, and I just kept it in my little compartment of weird facts.
Well, I thought I heard it was poisonous if you didn't.
No, gosh, no, definitely not. If it was poisonous, I don't know why we put it in food, right?
Yeah.
Although that's not always the case. There's a lot of weird things we put in food that is definitely not good for you in large quantities. So, but yeah, the bay leaf, nothing wrong with the bay leaf. If I had a bay leaf here, I probably might have put one in here as well.
Nice aroma.
Yeah, it is, and that's really what it's there for. That's why we put it in when there's a liquid for it to sort of bond to. I really like bay leaves in my mignonette. Actually, I'll toast the black pepper with some bay leaves, and then I'll blend the black pepper and bay leaves in a blender and put that in the mignonette with my shallots and my sherry or red wine vinegar, whatever you're using. So yeah, and that's basically powdered bay leaf at that point. But yeah, you can 100% eat bay leaf. There's nothing wrong with it.
What kind of blender?
Just like a stand blender, normal. You could use a food processor too, but I'm doing like a pretty big batch, and then I'll like store it because that seasoning is good in pretty much anything. Yeah, but you toast it in a pan, dry toast it in a pan, and then just put it all in a blender. When I was doing this, it was mainly in commercial kitchens, so like I was doing really like quarts of this for my mignonette.
When you say the pepper, you're doing peppercorns, and then they'll be blended when you put them.
Yes, correct. Yeah, black peppercorns, whole black peppercorns.
Grinder too, like a little coffee grinder.
Oh yeah, those are good.
For home use, I use it.
If you can get a tiny size blender, yeah, those things are the best. So this is starting to look a little bit more. Like my squash is already breaking apart, so I'm really hopeful that my carrots are going to be nice and soft now. Let's take a peek. Oh yeah, that was a sweet potato. That's good. I know the squash is good because I can see it just like gone. Come on, carrot, be good to me. Oh man, should have put the carrots in sooner. Nope, clove. Clove.
Not a lot.
You know, Chris, one of the things that's amazing to me, and how come your stuff's not burning? All that stuff's on a high heat?
This one is off. I've turned this one off.
Okay.
Yep, and then it's because it's an induction cooking.
What is that?
So induction cooking is a magnetic-based cooking. So both of these pans are magnetic. Induction basically just turns on and off a magnet really fast, and what that does is it excites the atoms of the magnetized. In this case, I think it's just a steel bottom. It excites those, and energy gets released when that happens. When you sort of change the polarity really fast, they try to get attached and they don't. They try to get attached and they don't. So they start to vibrate. They heat up, and when they heat up very evenly. Anytime you're cooking, whether it be on electric or gas, you're going to have hot spots, and that's where you get burning.
Yeah,
With
I try and get a decent enough pan so it
Yeah,
doesn't
exactly,
have hot
exactly.
spots. But even okay, because I use gas and electric, right? But even
Yeah.
so when you could start on a high heat, but then you got to lower it, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, usually.
Otherwise you're
For me, it's really this particular induction cooktop doesn't have like a very high end. Its max heat is probably, I don't know enough about when burning is happening, but its max heat is not so high that like it's going to scorch bottoms regularly. If I left this here and like went away for 10 minutes and didn't stir it, it would definitely burn for sure. But it's going to take more time just because of the nature of this particular cooktop. There are professional induction burners that will burn really, really fast. They'll take a pan from 0 to burn in no time. You know, you put it on there and it starts vibrating and it goes so fast.
But here's the question. So, like last night I had some shrimp, right?
Yeah.
And first I burned the garlic, which is why I asked you.
Gotcha.
And then second, it wasn't too burned, and I didn't want to start all over, so then I put the shrimp. What I was trying to do was get it, like I know you're supposed to do it high to kind of crisp the outside. And
Sure.
So just what are your tips? Like how do you cook it high on the outside and not overcook it on the inside? How do you do that?
That's a good question, and
And there's no answer.
I mean, it's just you you gotta sort of be there. So for me, one thing that I always do when I'm cooking is I'm doing my mise en place, my prep while I'm cooking, and I almost always I have an eye on my burner while I'm chopping. So like when that garlic starts to change color, I can stop my chops and go over there. So I'm working while I'm cooking. It means there's less like sort of downtime where I can get distracted and look away, and forget about things like that. But that's really like the only solution is to just like kind of don't only do that for a moment, you know? Yeah, exactly.
Oh, believe me. I was
Yeah,
there.
but yeah, that's the thing. It's not really like there isn't really like a great sort of solution
But
apart
I
from.
thought, like I had it on the hot, right? And
Yeah.
Then you lower it, don't you? Especially on a gas stove.
Um,
You then lower it.
It kind of depends. Like, it would depend, right? If I wanted color on them,
Yeah.
I would keep it high the whole time. I would cook them. I would probably put the shrimp in, and then as I put the last one in, I'd flip the first one. Like I would try and do like 12 or something, and then the first one's probably going to be done. And then when I flip the last one, I'd maybe toss a pat of butter in there and then turn it off. You know, but it's really kind of just like that's one way to do it. There's other ways where maybe I have a sauce in there that I'm poaching the shrimp in. I'm maybe going to keep that on high to get the sauce nice and hot, and then I'll put the shrimp in there, and then as soon as that temperature recovers, I'm going to turn it down. You generally, when you add something to a pan, you don't want to turn the heat down until the temperature is recovered, unless your sort of purpose by putting that in was to lower the temperature. Yeah.
I mean, I just use shrimp as an example.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, just in general, I think it's nice when it's crispy on the outside. You know,
I 100% agree.
seared and then, you know.
All right.
Immersion blender.
Guys, I'm going to use this immersion blender. If you have one of these at home, they're cool. If you don't, they're really fun. You might want to get one. Just make sure this is locked. I have one already. You don't need to get me one. Oh, you don't. You have one. Are you sure? Okay, good to know. Good to know. We already got your Christmas present though. So they're really fun. You can use them in so many different things. My main uses are for soups like this and tomato sauce. It's just when you know you're going to use this, it just makes things so much easier because you can make giant, big chunks. You don't have to worry about it. Life is just easier when you know you're using one of these. So if you don't have one, they're usually pretty cheap.
They are.
But you can also use a stand blender. If I didn't have one of these, what I'd be doing right now is I'd have like a 2-cup measure or a cup measure, and I'd be scooping this into a stand blender till it's about a half full. You don't want to go much higher than that when you're blending hot things, and then I'd be blending it in batches. But we're not going to do that today. You would, if I was doing this in a kitchen, like for a commercial kitchen, I probably still would do that. Or the worst case scenario is I'd use a stick blender and then I'd pass it through a sieve because I want it to be as smooth as possible when I'm doing something commercial like that. But for home cooking and for you guys, not that I don't care about you, I like it a little more chunky. I want it to be a little more like have a different sort of mouth feel. So I'm just gonna use the stick blender and we're gonna call it done with just the stick blender today.
If you had I'm in the market for one of those, but if you have a non-stick pan, is there a danger of wrecking the non-stick, or you're not going to the bottom?
Yeah, no, there definitely is. The blades won't touch anything. They just they have guards. They're designed not to do that. But the actual like metal guards will scrape the bottom. So like if I went to the bottom like this and was like going like that, that would probably not be ideal. When I'm doing this, especially with this is like a good amount of soup, so I'm not going to do it with this. When there's a lot, I'll usually tilt the pan because the deeper the liquid, the more you're going to get sort of upwelling and stuff, and that's going to help mix your ingredients. You want the ingredients to get stirred while you're doing this so that they sort of go down to where the blade is and get nice and blended up. This is a nice big soup. It's actually looking pretty good as far as texture. I might go ahead and say that you only need a quart of broth just in general for this recipe. I really thought there'd be more that you would need, but this is looking pretty good as far as thickness. So, you know, 2 quarts, you could put 2 quarts in there, but I would say officially we're moving it up to 1 stick of butter and 1 quart of broth. Those are my notes from today's session. It's not going to be wrong if you put more broth in there. It's just not going to be as thick and rich, you know?
The immersion blenders have more than one speed.
This one doesn't, but yeah, usually they do. Usually they'll have a high and low at least. This one is it was a donation, which is great. I'm so happy that I have it. But it's not as powerful as what I'm used to, you know? This one's more meant for like versatility. There's about like 6 or so tops on this thing, which is great. Like this has like a whip function as well. It's got a mix function, so you could do you could do cocktails with this as well. But because of that, the power isn't incredibly high. But it still works pretty good. There's maybe still a couple chunks in here, but you could, yeah, if you have the right attachment. This one has a whisk attachment, which is kind of fun because like when the whisk attaches on it, you can have the whisk going and be whipping it, so you're like double whipping your cream. But not all of them do. Most of them have just the blade. The one I have at home, the blade is fixed. In fact, like it's just one big piece, and so it doesn't. You know, you can't like take it apart. What's that?
You have to use the whisk.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, you could use an immersion blender straight. It would eventually get air into it, I think, but wouldn't be my first go-to.
So you're not, in other words, not scraping it.
I tend to do up and down a lot because once it starts to get more blended and the top gets thicker and more emulsified, the chunks will start to sink. At first they're floating, but then once the rest of it gets more dense, they start to sink to the bottom. And you just want to get them on the bottom, and then once they're on the bottom, you can kind of squish them down like this. If this is more powerful, like there's some big ones that are like massive. That's going to be like whipping this soup at the same time. But this isn't that powerful, so I really got to kind of work to make sure I get it all. But I do think I've got enough to at least start serving. So great, let's go ahead and call that done. It smells really good. So this one's kind of fun because it comes off, so that can go in the dishwasher. The one I have at home doesn't do that. So you know, it's just a matter of what you've got and what you can use. Let's go ahead and take a taste here. Got a nice fresh spoon. It looks good to me. Thickness looks good. I don't know if you guys can kind of see. When I'm stirring it, I can like feel resistance with the spoon, but like when it settles, it's not too bad. There are still some chunks in here, so if you get any chunks, my bad. But it looks good. It's not too thick. Oh, it tastes good. Okay, sweet. It could use a little more salt. I'm gonna put a little more salt in there. Not much though. Otherwise, this tastes pretty dang good. Where's my spoon? What was it? Oh, I was using that. That's right. Get myself a new spoon. Trying to think if it's gonna want any more herbs too, but I think it's probably just good the way it is. Sour cream will help kind of give it a little bit of like acidity.
You could put milk in, right?
Yeah, so cream and milk are a great thing you could add at this point as well. I'm putting sour cream on top in this situation, just again because I was talking about the sort of vegan situation. But right now is where I put cream in there. Maybe up to like a pint of cream, depending on how creamy you want it to be. But that would then make it a bisque. All right, I like that a lot. We're gonna start with that. All right, guys, I'm gonna start serving this up. I'm gonna get my sour cream out of the fridge, and it's gonna be time to eat here in a second. So everybody's on for turkey, right? Or for chicken, I guess, right? Cool, let's go.
Would you have put the cream in and use the immersion blender to mix it?
I put the cream in after I blend it, probably.
So
yeah.
Just stir it in.
Yeah, you want to stir it in. You want the cream to basically be, you don't want it to move as much as possible because like it might scorch or it might break the more that it gets incorporated. You want it to really just kind of be put in at the last moment.
Boy, it sounds like a real gourmet soup.
When I did it with squash soup, I would just put it in on the, like a KitchenAid that's a Cuisinart, you know that kind of thing.
Oh yeah. That works really good.
Yeah. So after I had to do it in batches, but my soup came out way too, which is, I mean, no, it was way too. So I did add like say, not cream but milk. That helped. It made it creamy. And I did that.
Yeah, milk is good too. The biggest thing with milk is it's it's pretty thin itself, and so maybe take a little broth out if you know you're using milk instead. thought we had a. I thought we had a soup ladle. We'll find something that works as a soup ladle if we don't have an
Cup, a
actual
paper
one.
cup or something.
Yeah, I'll find something. That's not a problem. I've got a big cup measure right here that will work. All right, let's go. So the way I'd serve this is I just put, see, a couple chunks there. Don't tell. About a cup in a bowl. I'm gonna do this in batches of 4 just because I don't want these things to get like goopy. And then I would take a little bit of this turkey. I just put this over here. And I just kind of like make a little pile of turkey on one side. Hey, you know, I'll take it. And then a little quenelle, although we probably won't make very good ones, which is just like a little fancy word for a dollop. Might get another spoon in here. This is thick sour cream. I got some daisy. Alright, so if you guys want to just start coming up from the back first, get yourself a meal here, grab a spoon, and you already had napkins on your plates, and I'll just keep plating up. And let me know what you think. I'm always here for constructive criticism. I think this is probably my like 5th best one I've made, so it means we got space to grow up, you know?
If you had had an immersion with 2 speeds, would you have used the low or the high?
High, definitely.
Celery salt is the magic ingredient.
Yeah, celery salt. That's a great idea. Celery salt would be great in this for sure. I love celery salt. That is a good point. That's probably what would make it really be stuffing ready.
This looks delicious.
Yeah, I hope it is delicious. I haven't tried it all together yet. I can't wait to get in there.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Of course.
Hefty serving.
Yeah, well, it's soup, you know. We're all hungry. It's winter time.
I do have a question. I don't know if you
Yeah.
want to.
Oh, yeah, now's great.
Do you ever use leek in place of onion?
Oh, all the time. Yeah, I love leek. It's great.
Yeah.
You basically anything. The biggest thing you have to worry about with leek is it's a lot more fibrous.
Yeah.
So if I'm blending it like this, it might not be my best solution.
Yeah.
I would probably just cook the soup longer or cook the leek longer
Yeah.
to really make sure.
Oh, it smells really good.
I hope it ends up being good.
Oh my God.
Thank you very
I
much.
might actually whip out this immersion blender for this last bit because there's still some chunks in there.
I love the immersion. Well, that'd be a great invention.
Yeah, it really is.
It's going. You mean Jake's not having any either, or that's where it's all going?
All going.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Okay, I made the holidays. You know, I tested
That's a good idea, huh? Thank you.
Of course.
For Sweet Jay and I had a big Greek meal at the high school. 3-course meal. I can't eat
Love
another
that.
thing at the moment. So if you put my
Yeah, I can make you a thing for sure. Let's see, what am I looking for? Oh, the blender is over here. I'm gonna blend this up a little bit more because there's some chunky bits in the
other people
bottom.
can take.
Yeah, definitely. You want me to just put a bowl in there, or you want me to put the soup in there?
Just put the soup in. That'll be fine.
Yeah, of course. I can do that.
Pass these on to people.
Thank you.
Is this on the library YouTube or on your Panda?
It'll be on the library YouTube. Yeah, Edgartown Library YouTube. I'll pull the video probably tomorrow, and then hopefully it'll be up by the end of the day.
Do you have your own channel, Chris?
I don't know.
You said you have something on.
Yeah, I used to have a website. It was Trash Panda EPL at .wordpress.com that I was doing during the pandemic. But we have moved away from that. It's still hosted though. WordPress still has it up. So if you want to check it out, you can. There's a lot of really good recipes on it actually.
Where is it again?
Trash Panda. Trash Panda EPL .wordpress.com.
I'll ask you later when I write.
Oh yeah, of course.
this is a taste treat, something new. Well, hopefully it's a treat.
Yeah, I sure hope so.
Yeah.
I also hope so. I never know, I'm like, I cooked something, this is probably tasty, but I'm always my worst critic, for
Can
sure.
I have one without the sour cream, please?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Whoopsies. So no sour cream, if you want to pass that back.
No sour cream. Okay. I just need a spoon. I'll let you take your own. Thank you.
Of course.
Got it?
I forgot to have the sour cream portion. There we go.
No, it doesn't look color. It's just the taste.
Oh, no, I figured. Yeah, exactly. I don't want it to have too much sour cream either.
Yeah.
All right, how we looking? Okay, how many more do I
You're on the
need?
second row, so first row will be coming up now.
Okay, great, perfect.
Chris, could I have it in a jar? Because I too went to that big delicious lunch at high school.
Okay, great. Yeah, leave your jar there, and we'll definitely get you. I'll get you
Yeah, and I'd
plated
like
up.
it both with the sour cream and the turkey.
You got it, my friend.
God,
Okay, so 3 more apart from our to-goes. Awesome. Skip, if you leave your
yeah.
yeah, leave that right there.
Yeah,
I will make
and
sure
I have
you
a-
get a nice serving.
Yeah, I have another glass jar in my thing, and I have a sock around it because they
Good
clash,
ins- yeah.
clash too much. And that other one is for the leftover coffee from the film tonight.
Oh, nice.
Because if you don't take it, it goes down the drain.
Yep.
And I make coffee milkshakes out of it.
Exactly. All right, I'm gonna pass this past you. Skip.
Yeah, sure.
Just get everybody else their
Oh,
their
yeah,
plates
you-
for now, and you just pass that to me.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Did everybody get a plate?
Yeah.
Looks like it.
I did a roasted version.
Yeah.
And I'm making another one. But now I might use the, what's it, the ghost squash? No, the one you use.
Oh, cheese squash.
Cheese.
Yeah, cheese
Because I was
squash.
going to do butternut.
Yeah, but I mean, nothing wrong with butternut, but I just love cheese squash.
But I left the skins on. I roasted it, and the skin womped up in the Cuisinart really perfect. I mean, it
With
was
the butternut?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
It was
not,
delish.
it's usually not too bad. You know,
You take care of yourself too.
thank you.
Oh, it is turkey stuffing.
Yeah, that's kind of that was the hope. That was the desire. I haven't tried it all together yet, so I'm not sure how it turned out. But I'm assuming it turned out pretty good. Nobody's yelling at me, so
No, it's pretty darn good.
good. That's for Skip, and then let me get you here.
I'll pass it to Skip.
Man, I told everybody on staff that there might be leftovers, and I think there is a. Staff's gonna be mad at me.
Oh, they're going to be mad at you.
Well, it's okay though because I have that leftover broth, so maybe I'll make ramen to make up for it. I just was like, I did the math. I was like, okay, 24 people, a cup per soup, and I really thought I was gonna have leftovers, but I don't.
Chris, what are you talking about with ramen? What do you do with that?
Ramen.
What about it?
So yeah, I'm gonna. I really like a tonkatsu is the broth that I really like, and so I'm just gonna save a little bit for myself here.
Sure, yeah, of course.
Janet, but I want you to get the rest.
Okay, well, we'll split it. And
There should be about 2 cups in there.
this is called dinner.
Yeah, exactly. Do you want me to put the I'll put some turkey in there too?
Sure.
Just on the side. Here.
Even without the
I'm not allowed to tell you guys. Do you want me to put some sour cream in there too?
Thank you very much.
I can tell you it's going to be a soup. Yeah.
Request for black bean soup 1 week.
1 month. Okay, I can hear that. Right now I have my next 2 soups planned out. Next month is going to be holiday appropriate. It is, and I can tell you that it is an Irish tradition for Christmas, and that there is going to be a what's the word I'm looking for? We're doing a partnership again with the Eggertown shellfish board. So I don't know if that tells anybody what it might be, but I'm going to leave it at that.
Who you best?
Ooh, I like that. That's not what it's going to be
San
though.
Francisco.
We don't have any. We don't have any mussels. Well, we do have mussels on the island. I take it back, but think shellfish, think Christmas, and maybe you'll have the answer. But I don't want it to get on tape, so I'm going to turn this off before anybody throws guesses my way. Thank you guys for coming. I'm so happy that you all got a chance to eat this delicious soup. Thank you for being here. I'll see you guys next month. It is going to be early next month because I'm going on vacation. So just make sure you get yourselves signed up right on the 1st if you can. And otherwise, just thank you all for coming. This was just so much fun.